Have a listen to this. Have a listen to this.
Now, that kind of talk this week dragged Australia's share market to a two-year low. There are, of course, complex reasons for that.
He was the big spender. The big spender.
Doing the grocery shopping could take a huge chunk out of the family budget.
And that's finance.
Hello and welcome to Comedian versus Economist. We demystify the world of money and help you get a handle on the bigger picture. My name's Adam and we're joined as always by my little older brother and real life economist, Thomas. Hi, Thomas.
Yeah, g'day Adam. How you going?
Very well, thank you. Don't forget, of course, that we announced our partnership with the ASX and the rest of the Equity Mates Media Network to participate in the share market game with the ASX. So if you haven't done so already, really encourage you to go and sign up and join in the fun. That'll all be kicking off very soon. But Thomas, on with the show, and we're going to talk about turkey inflation. And no, I don't mean putting too much stuffing in the Christmas bird. It's inflation in Turkey, the country. Apparently, we're in the midst of the Great Reshuffle, which, you know, take from that what you will. And inflation is on the rise. So now everyone who said MMT was a good idea is now saying, yeah, but nah, you're doing it wrong. And big news, Thomas, people are jacking up the prices of donkeys. That's right. That and many more donkey puns a little later in the show. But first, US inflation has come out. It's at 7.5%, Thomas. Is it time to restock the bunker, pull the kids out of school and head back underground?
It's not. It was grim, but it's you know, so it was 7% last month, and you know, year on year is now up to 7.5%. So pushing higher, a bit higher than economists were expecting. They were looking for 7.3%. So it's high. It's now the highest level since 1982. You got to go back that far to get an inflation rate like this.
This is an economist's wet dream, right? We haven't been this excited about inflation since the 80s.
Yeah, it's about right, actually. I mean, I started at the Reserve Bank in 2001, and my whole career, inflation was a non-issue. You know, it was all waiting for inflation to happen. As an inflation targeting central bank, you're like, when's it coming? And it just never came. So it's been, 20 odd years where inflation has been a non-issue, and now it is the number one issue right now. So it's what everyone's watching.
Right. So inflation's 7.5% in the US. Why is inflation so much higher in the US than it is here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think that's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. And I don't know that there's a strong narrative around why we're not seeing it here in Australia. You look at what's driving US inflation, it's food, electricity and shelter. We haven't seen fuel prices have been up, shelter prices have been up. But I think maybe they figure differently in the Aussie CPI. And then food prices. Australia is actually a very food sovereign nation. Like we're food independent. Right. There's a few stories like when COVID first hit, people worrying about running out of food and everyone panic buying in the supermarkets. But Australia is actually quite food independent, and maybe that helps protect us. But that's a good question. I might look a bit more into that. Yeah, but food's up. Food's up 7.1%, the highest level in 41 years. Energy's up 4.2%. It's now 27% over the past 12 months. So, we're not seeing energy spikes, anything like that. I mean, we produce a lot of energy here in Australia. Maybe that protects us as well. But we're definitely not seeing energy prices up 27% year on year. That's massive.
It's winter in the US too, though, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So there's a lot more heating bills. It's probably 27% colder over there.
Yeah. That's probably right. Yeah.
Have you economists tried factoring in some of those numbers?
Yeah, we should. Yeah, I don't think fans are quite as expensive to run.
That's right. Like when you talk about shelter, our walls probably don't need to be as thick. It's a lot cheaper. Right. So did they?
Oh, so it's becoming a big political issue now. Like it's people are starting to freak out. So wages are growing at like 5.7%. So that means real wages are going backwards. So people's purchasing power's going backwards. People aren't happy about that, obviously. Energy prices up 27%. That's sort of freaking people out a bit. Joe Biden declared this week Prices Week and saying it's all hands on deck to win this fight against inflation.
Sounds like the war on drugs that they announced in the 80s and 90s.
This is your brain on inflation. But and so the other interesting data point I found that TikTok had so budgeting, hashtag budgeting is trending. So there's 41 million views over 2 days around the budgeting topic.
All right, I don't care what's trending on TikTok. What does this mean for markets though?
Well, the rate outlook had changed last month with higher inflation than expected. That's now getting locked in. Markets are now pricing in 50 basis points in March. So Deutsche Bank and Nomura are looking for 50 bips in the March meeting. Some people are still looking for 25, but now the profile is now looking more aggressive. We're going to expect stronger rate hikes out of the Fed and more quicker than people were thinking. One board member saying that they're going to need to hike 100 basis points by the end of the financial year, so by July. So that's pretty aggressive.
So I'd ask again, what does it mean for markets? So you've just told me about rate hikes, which is not an answer to my question. So markets going to go up or down?
Oh,
let's try and dumb it down for you. Jeez.
I mean, it depends on how much markets have already digested the change to a more aggressive rate outlook. Yeah, it's obviously not going to be strong news for growth stocks, but we're seeing some sort of pretty patchy results. We saw that last week with Facebook versus Amazon. Facebook got smashed. Amazon got a bump. So it's not consistent, but it just creates more volatility, I suppose. Yeah, for now, because the narrative has shifted. The narrative shifted last month. People say, okay, cheap money's over. We're moving to quantitative tightening. We're moving to a rate hike cycle. That sort of takes some of the bubble out of the growth stocks, you'd think. But I think this month, it's interesting, this month you get the highest inflation in 40 years. And markets are like, yeah, okay, we got it. We got that last month. It's higher than it was last month, but we've kind of digested that news, it seems.
Seems like there's a bit of volatility in your willingness to take a position on the matter, to be honest, but we will move on. All right, Thomas, Ash has sent us a link via email, cve@equitymates.com, which you can do as well. Or, of course, you can send us a message at CVE Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Actually, just send us a link to a New York Times article, which was a discussion about MMT, modern monetary theory. And do you want to, maybe you should take it from here and just run us through the article at a high level? Yeah,
so if you remember, modern monetary theory is sort of a different framework for thinking about how the economy works. Probably the central idea is that budget deficits don't matter in the way that we've previously thought that they mattered, that money printing and deficit financing isn't necessarily inflationary. It depends on what constraints exist within the economy. And it was very fringe for a long time. It's been around for a while, but it was seen as really out there on the fringes until pretty much all governments around the world started running an MMT agenda with massive government deficits and money printing. And so that's what sort of the New York Times article is saying. Is it time for MMT to take a victory lap because everyone's adopted it in practice, if not in theory? So does that mean MMT is vindicated? Has MMT won the paradigm shift?
And has it?
Well,
because so COVID hit, and then there was this massive ramp up of money printing. Like I think the US printed something like 2.6 trillion just one day. I think Trump just went, hey, you know what we need here? We just need tons of cash. So that then fired up the conversation around MMT, and a lot of people were talking about MMT and going, this is it. This is MMT's time to shine. We're doing it. We're living it. This is it's really happening. Everyone's pretty excited. But now, of course, we're seeing inflation, which was like everyone who was, I guess, against MMT was kind of saying, nah, MMT is going to lead to inflation. And now that's happening. So where are we at? The New York Times are saying, is this, time for a victory lap? A lot of other people now also saying, absolutely not. It didn't work. Where are we? Somewhere in the middle?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. MMT is still not being taken seriously by academic economists. So Lawrence Summers, who was the Treasury Secretary under Clinton, he tweeted, I'm sorry to see the New York Times taking MMT seriously as an intellectual movement. It is the equivalent of publicising fad diets, quack cancer cures, or creationist theories.
Right.
So he's not down with it. But his beef is sort of that it doesn't have enough modelling behind it. And I think, I don't know, to me it sort of misses the point. Like it sort of is talking about MMT as a framework for how the economy actually works. And I think it's been vindicated in the sense that to the extent that there was an idea that money printing always creates inflation and massive deficit funding always creates inflation and you should never do it, I don't know that that was so much an economic idea as it was a political idea, like the idea of balanced budgets, back in black and all of that. That was more of a political sloganeering that we should always run budget deficits. And you saw that when COVID hit, there was that commitment to budget deficits was blown out the window. We've now in Australia got gone from having a budget deficit to a deficit of 10% of GDP. It's like massive. And it's kind of, for the moment, it's all okay. And it's a bit unfair to say that, yes, but now there is inflation and, in 6 months down the road and we have huge inflation, we look back and go, see, MMT was wrong. But MMT never said there would never be inflation or that there would never be consequences. MMT was saying where you get inflation is where you have constrained sectors of the economy. So, like if you ramp up demand for widgets and there's only a limited capacity to bring new widgets to markets, the price of widgets goes up. And they're sort of saying that, you can manage that depending on where the stimulus and the spending gets focused. If you stay away from those constrained sectors, then you can do okay. And particularly like they're talking about labor, like if you have an underutilization of labor, then you can you can manage that with deficit spending. And as long as there's that underutilization, there's slack in the economy and you're not going to get inflation. So that was an argument politically, like practically, for like 3%, 4% budget deficits. The MMT was never arguing for 10%,
right?
Or like and just gushing money at the economy the way that we have. Like it's been a massive, huge amount of money printed, huge government spending both in America and Australia and pretty much everywhere. And that might lead to inflation, but that doesn't mean MMT was wrong, because no one at a practical level was recommending that you kind of have that kind of spending. And theoretically, they weren't saying it was never going to happen. It's just that it's not as simple as money printing equals inflation, which is sort of what when I went to university, that was sort of taken as given, like it was never really questioned.
Right. And it's probably then, it's too simplistic to say as well, from what I read in the article, is money printing does not equal MMT. Because you often hear like people talk about MMT and they say, well, yeah, it's basically money printing, almost recklessly printing money and just throwing money at whatever you want. But that's not what, if you get into MMT, that they're kind of arguing, is it? They're saying it still needs to be directed. And that was the problem, and why we're seeing inflation now is maybe there was, because it was like a COVID response, like a sort of panic situation, a panicked response, that a lot of the money that was printed is just kind of injected willy-nilly into the system and not caring enough about whether the supply was constrained for X and it wasn't for Y, whereas MMT probably argues you need to be thinking about that. And that's what I say, so at the top of the show, we're doing it wrong. I think that's now the MMT people coming out and going, well, yeah, you kind of took the money printing bit of MMT and you just blindly threw it at the economy. And so that's why we are where we are.
Yeah, I think that's right. But it's also worth noting, like, so Stephanie Kelton's the big sort of the pop figure of MMT, and yeah, the pop star of it. We've got a great photo we'll share to the Instagram of how she does her podcast. Yeah, and typically, so there is the sort of the theory of MMT, and then there's the sort of ideology and the practice of MMT. And typically, the practice of it is progressive because it allows for a role for government, allows for bigger government. That tends to be a progressive issue. Conservatives want a smaller government, so they're not necessarily aligned with MMT. But purely as a theoretical model, it has no ideological bent. It's just trying to be a description of how the economy works. It just so happens that people who tend to view that have that paradigm and like that paradigm are also progressive because they're looking for ways to justify more government intervention.
I mean, so it's like any movement too, though. Like you're always going to get someone will create the movement, and then you'll just get all the hangers on that just like jump in. Like, there's probably just like, there's like a faction of people who are just like, I just want to print money, man. I'm just here for the money printing. Like, if you look at the protests in Canberra over the weekend, there's like flags, but then there's all these little flags that pop up and little slogans. And there's all the sort of hangers on who are just like, man, I'm just here because there's a protest going on and I want like cheaper donuts. It's outrageous. And so it's no surprise that that maybe MMT's splintered and fractious. There's people in it who just want to see what happens if we print lots of money. All right, Thomas. So everyone in the US is panicking at inflation at 7.5%. Turkey, the country, has come out. They've said, hold my beer, 48%. What on earth is going on in Turkey?
Yeah. They're a Muslim country, so it's probably hold my tea.
Hold my tea. Hold my chai.
Yeah, 48.69% in January. I don't know why we get 2 decimal points in Turkey, but that's how they roll. We think once you get into the 40s, it doesn't matter about the second decimal. But.
You could start rounding up. I think as you turn into double-digit inflation, it's time to start rounding.
Yeah. So 11.1% in the month to give us 48.69% over the year.
Just imagine people in Turkey just going, if this hits 48.96%, we are rioting.
So inflation's off the hook in Turkey. It's pretty massive. What's been really interesting about this, so inflation's been rising for a while now. What's been interesting is that the President Erdogan has been pushing for interest rate cuts. So he's cutting into inflation. So that's it goes against economic orthodoxy. Normally when inflation's rising, you try and break the back of it by hiking interest rates and slowing the economy down. He's gone the other route. So inflation's rising and he's cutting rates. The interest rates have fallen 500 basis points since September to 14%. So yeah, that's quite a substantial cutting program. That's caused the Turkish lira to tumble. So the lira is down 44%. Yeah, since they started slashing rates.
So what school of economics is he working in then? It's not your traditional economic theory. It's not your modern monetary theory.
No, it's kind of his own story there.
It's roll your own economic.
Yeah, I mean, there is sort of an idea that if you're a developing economy and your export sector is most of your economy is massive, that if you slash rates and crash your currency, that makes your exports cheaper. Your exports will, you'll start exporting more, and that export revenue starts driving your economy, and things get better, and you get a boost out of it. And there's sort of an idea that you might be able to grow your way out of trouble. That seems that there is that idea out there, and there was a period in the 2000s where China did something similar and seemed to get away with it. The problem with that idea in the Turkey situation is Turkey is not a developing economy. Turkey is more of a middle income economy, and it's not entirely export driven. And when your currency collapses like 44% in a year, that makes imports really expensive.
Right. And
it means all of the sectors of the economy that are reliant on imports, they start to really struggle because now they've got to pay more for their imports, and they get into trouble. And so it doesn't seem like there is no one out there that I've read that says that this is the right course for Turkey's current economic situation. But he's a populist, and this seems to be, I think they've sacked the central bank governor 3 times in the past 2 years or something like that.
Yeah, well, he's probably just trying to do economic stuff, and the president's like, nah, man, I can't. You just can't be bringing your traditional economics gear to this situation. We're making it up as we go along now. I'm pleased to hear that their export's going to be still pumping though, because did you know Turkey accounts for 75% of the world's production of hazelnuts?
Is that right?
There you go, 75% though. So man, if that stops functioning, we run out of Nutella. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to freak anyone out, but my kids are pretty into it.
The Nutella crisis of 2022. Heard it here first.
All right, let's take a break here, grab a word from our sponsors, and be back with more Comedian versus Economist right after this. Thomas, Josh Frydenberg came out and he's now talking about the Great Reshuffle, which sounds like a really boring poker game. What's he actually talking about?
Yeah, saying we're not seeing a great resignation in Australia. So there's been a bit of rumours that we might see a great resignation, like we seem to have seen in the US. So that's another point of difference between us and America. But where we're not seeing a great resignation, we are seeing a great reshuffle. So there was some Treasury analysis that showed a record 300,000 workers in the December quarter had left their jobs for a new opportunity. Yeah, so Frydenberg said, unlike some other countries, we are seeing a great reshuffle rather than a great resignation. Compares with in America, where there are 2.8 million fewer Americans in the labour force than before the pandemic. So it's quite a substantial drop in the labour force. We haven't seen a fall in our labour forces. It's held up, apart from the fall related to immigration.
Do they know why? Like, are people just looking for something different to do, or are they kind of chasing more money?
I would expect they're chasing more money, and there's a lot of opportunities. Like, the labour market is very tight. You're hearing of some sectors, particularly tech, where there's a real labour shortage, and some tech salaries are booming. So I expect people are going for higher wages. It's really interesting because there is this bit of a narrative that we can be a bit more relaxed about wages in Australia because we have a stickier wages system, because we have the Accord and we have minimum wage. The Fair Work Commission looks at the minimum wage every year, it gets a slight adjustment, and then that feeds through the award system. That wages in Australia tend to be sticky and a bit slow to respond to economic circumstances. So while the economy is heating up, wages tend to be a bit slow moving off. That's only true if people stay in their current jobs and get a pay rise from their current employer. If people start jumping jobs and finding new employers and finding higher wage rates, then you could see a much quicker lift in wages than we're expecting.
That's interesting. And I don't know if there's more investigation needed here, but it's a pretty volatile time, with COVID and everything else happening, that I just imagine... Like, I wonder how many of them were, like, voluntary. You know what I mean? Like, people were like, oh, you reshuffled your job. Well, yeah, I had to, because the place I was working at closed down because of COVID.
Yeah, I think that would be captured in the survey question. So it specifically says left their job for a new opportunity. So it's not like I lost my job. It's that they've actually left their job for a new opportunity.
Right. Assuming people read the question.
We are seeing, like, in the vacancies data, like in the number of job ads, it's booming. There's a huge number of vacancies. Job ads are at record highs. The labour market does look really tight. Unemployment at 4.2%. It's a really tight labour market. So it's not surprising that that wages are lifting, that we're hearing a lot of firms talking about having to pay more to secure the right talent. So it's consistent, I think.
Right. So it's not because people have lost their jobs. People are just negotiating better jobs. So, again, maybe you should go and talk to your boss, or maybe talk to someone else's boss.
Tell him Adam sent you.
Thomas, the price of your average donkey has gone through the roof. Massive price rises across the board. Apparently, it used to cost about $600 to $700 for a donkey, and now it's about $2,500. Can you tell us why the price of donkeys is increasing so much?
It's actually more than that. So 3 years ago, pre-COVID, you could get $60 a head for a donkey as pet meat. Then apparently it's jumped up during COVID to $600 to $700, and now it's $2,500.
That's huge.
It's huge, yeah. Who knew the winning trade of COVID was going long donkeys?
Oh man, yeah. I think it could become a big issue, like, because people, obviously the cost of donkeys, and if this becomes an election issue, then we could see a lot of donkey votes. Is all I'm saying. You know what I mean? Farmers are using them more and more. Farmers are using them to protect their livestock, to protect their sheep,
protect against dog attacks. Apparently, so one farmer says that in Geraldton was saying that dog attacks were costing him $10,000 a year. So he paid $3,000 for a pair of donkeys, and figures that's a good return on investment.
So a male donkey is called a jack or a jackass, right?
Uh-huh.
Female donkey is called a Jenny, or sometimes a Karen. And so these donkeys that are out, because I never think of a donkey as a particularly kind of aggressive animal, or like even an animal that... There was that survey we did last year, like, which animal do you think you could beat in a fight?
Oh, yeah.
I would have pegged a donkey a fair way down the list, like well down from bear. And if I was looking for something to protect my farm, like these mustn't be your run-of-the-mill jackass donkeys. These must be badass donkeys to be protecting livestock.
Oh, was that another pun? Badass.
Like, there's gonna be puns throughout this time. Let's just keep up. Well, they have to be, because donkeys look so docile and boring. Like, I can't like if a dog flies onto your farm, right? It's looking to get some sheep. I just don't imagine that there's a tough-looking donkey standing in the corner, just like, "Oh, hey, dog, what are you doing in here?"
It's true. Like one of the reasons they're selling well is that they're very friendly with humans. That's one of their selling points. But then the dog attacks seem to be what this farmer in Geraldton was saying, was that it's not that the dogs aren't hunting the sheep. They just come on for a play and then just end up mauling the lambs, and the lambs die.
Well, there's a fun image for you Wednesday morning for tuning in.
Yeah.
All right, and so the donkeys are just scaring them off.
Yeah,
They're just kind of seeing a big donkey. Maybe the dog thinks it's an oversized dog. Like if we got tough donkeys, this opens a whole new world of opportunities. We could put them out the front of nightclubs. Like, how good would that be? Just a couple of donkeys out the front, just checking IDs and COVID check-ins. Just imagine a bouncer donkey. We'd be able to deal with troublemakers. Like, righto, mate, you're out. We're some pretty clever donkeys ourselves, so we know a smart ass when we see one.
But apparently the reason demand's spiking is from China. So the skins purportedly have medicinal benefit in China, and I don't know, maybe there's a COVID connection, but yeah, Chinese people have been stocking up on donkey skins, and that's caused a boom in donkey demand. Yeah,
so it's not just the skins in China that they're after, but the other issue they've got with donkeys is donkeys are pregnant for 14 months.
Whoa.
And they don't work when they're pregnant.
Right.
So that's one of the big issues, like, is they can't make donkeys fast enough. And then when you get a pregnant donkey can't fight dogs, like, or do whatever you've got the donkey there for. So yeah, I think there's a supply issue. There's a supply kind of, maybe donkeys are hard to ship around the world too. But yeah, I think breeding donkeys is pretty tricky. So if you're looking forward to another donkey pun or joke right at the end, I haven't got one. That's it. I don't want to mock pregnant donkeys. There are just some places I won't go on this show. All right. That wraps us up on that note for this week. Thank you once again for joining us. Don't forget, check out the ASX share market trading game. We hope you'll join us for that. And of course, get your ears around all the other great shows from Equity Mates Media. Get Started Investing, Equity Mates Investing Podcast, You're in Good Company, Talk Money to Me, and of course, Crypto Curious. So yeah, thanks again for listening. We will talk to you again next week. See ya.
Comedian V Economist is a product of Equity Mates Media. All information in this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional finance, legal, or tax advice. The hosts of Comedian V Economist are not financial professionals and are not aware of your personal financial circumstances. Before making any financial decisions, you should read the product disclosure statement and, if necessary, consult a licensed financial professional. Do not take financial advice from a podcast. For more information, head to the disclaimer page on the Equity Mates website, where you can find ASIC resources and find a registered financial professional near you. In the spirit of reconciliation, Equity Mates Media and the hosts of Comedian V Economist acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today.